Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. Before we get started, I'll show you guys a couple of the changes. Thanks to your feedback, I am grabbing some new chat channels. At the top here is Bringing Solo back, very interesting one. Especially here, as you can see, decently active as well. And in the message of the day, you also get cool videos from PvP fights, and you can potentially, I think, get some very interesting fits in this chat channel. So definitely an interesting one for the PvP guys, maybe one that I'll keep an eye out for myself as well. Next one, I grabbed the EVE Uni channel itself. It's not super active, but there's definitely some stuff happening there as well, compared to the previous one, which was of course completely dead. So hopefully we'll see some active participation here by everyone in these chat channels, although they don't know about it, and they'll help make EVE Talk feel a little bit more alive for the people that actively watch it and don't just listen, which is cool too, of course. Next up on news, of course, next week we've got potentially moon mining coming to Dital, so that's the first thing that I'll try and do is to set up the refinery on the moon, try to punch that moon and get a belt going for myself and for everyone else, of course, with potentially some Tech 2 materials in there as well. Eagerly awaiting that is definitely what I'm doing. So we are here for the market though, and as always we are going to start with some plex and stuff. That's going to be at 140. There we go. And you can already tell from the chart, I think plex is basically flat. It's not really going anywhere at the moment. If we put on the filters like that, plex are being sold for 3.2 million ISK, and the buyers are also at 3.2 million. Extremely narrow margin here. It's basically the name of the game. And I feel like this is a little bit of a wait and see signal from the market. And personally as well, if I would look to speculate on plex, I would not do any moves at the moment, not sell, not buy. I would wait for the first bit of concrete information that CCP comes out when it comes to their roadmap for the rest of the year and maybe even after that. My personal speculation is if they have some cool plans for the summer, we might actually see an increase in price. But if they only announce some small stuff and then they go, for instance, for another winter expansion with a big bang there, then I can see a pullback in plex. That would be the general pattern that plex experienced, at least like couple of years ago when I first started playing EVE, and that would put the bottom usually in around May. So that is something to keep in mind. I feel like at the moment it's me, all the other players and the market just waiting for CCP to announce their plans for EVE Online. Next up, we've got the multiple pilot training certificate. Here you can see the decrease in volatility, quite obviously, and the constant meandering around 1.3 billion ISK. So basically, because it's such a more expensive item, this is the same as the plex chart. It's really flat, even though it varies between, let's say, 1.25 and 1.38 billion ISK. It's basically flat. The numbers in volumes are up a little bit on lower prices, so people are actually selling these at a decent clip at the moment. Sellers are coming in at a little bit over 1.3 billion. Buyers are coming in at almost 1.25 billion here. So again, decently narrow margin for the price range. Usually people sell around 100, 250 of them every day, which is not bad. That trade is definitely doing quite nicely compared to last year here. Next up, we've got the skill extractor, of course. Extremely strong correlation between the skill extractor and plex themselves. It's basically a one-on-one conversion. So there's not that much to say here, except that we can notice individual sales between the two by checking these two charts. But yeah, since early January, almost mid-January, basically flat at the current range, selling for 363 million ISK, and the first buyer coming in at 353 million ISK. Again, that very narrow margin. It's only around 10 million ISK for something that costs 350 million. It's really not all that much. But what could be more interesting are the injectors, of course. Here is the large scale injector. Flat as well, a little bit later than plex, but definitely flat here at the tail end, but flat at a high point, pretty close to a 1-year high, well above 800 million ISK sellers, 814 million ISK and buyers, 799 million ISK. Again, 14 million ISK in difference, almost 15. It's really not that much for something that costs 800 million ISK. So narrow margin is definitely what's happening here. On the large scale injectors and the very high price, I do want to make an extra note here as well. The CSM minutes dropped, and I've so far only really found time to check out the Reddit thread. And I felt like there was something that was highlighted that is very important when it comes to the skill injectors. I think it was a quote from CCP Quant, who mentioned that with the introduction of the extractors and the injectors, the economy has changed drastically and it's very complex. But not only that, they now see people that come in, buy plex so that they can afford all the skill injectors needed for skills up to a super carrier, then buy enough plex for a super carrier itself, and that's it, they start flying that ship. And it was actually apparently a factor that CCP is now keeping in mind when it comes to, for instance, nerfing these super carriers when some of their customers have spent so much money on being able to fly them right away. And I feel like this is basically showing that my fear that I had when it comes to the skill extractors and the skill injectors, that whilst this is still within the rules of the sandbox, the fear that I had is that these were going to basically cut down on the longevity of the game. Something that used to take years and years, months to years for a carrier, but for a super carriers it would definitely take years before you had accrued all those skill points through a character. You could take the shortcut in the character bazaar, but I don't feel like that many people were doing that actively. Basically now they're trading in that longevity that the skill training offered in exchange for short-term profits, and it's starting to show. And I feel like it's actually a mistake to keep those customers in mind and to make that a reason not to nerf a ship when it is for the good of the game. I feel like when it comes to a sandbox, the health of the game takes priority over practically everything else, and especially those instant gratification guys that just drop, wouldn't know what it costs, hundreds, maybe even a couple $1,000s to just get straight into a super carrier or a Titan. I feel like that's a little bit crazy to give those customers the upper hand in a sandbox. I mean, in a non-sandbox game, it's a different story. Those guys are the whales that basically fund the operation. I understand that. But in a sandbox game with a subscription, I feel like those people, they should know the risks of doing such a move. And if it ends up nerfed, or if they end up losing the super carrier, I mean, CCP isn't going to reimburse a super carrier because they bought it yesterday. So why would they not nerf a super carrier if that's what the game needs? I feel like this is definitely something that we need to keep an eye on for EVE Online, that continued impact of the large scale injectors. And the fact that we are at a 1-year high price, in my opinion, shows that this is very active. It's not something that I do. I just, I'm happy with the skill points that I have accrued, and I continue to just train through a paid account. But there is lots and lots and lots of players that actively use the skill injectors to boost themselves into the ship of their choice. And apparently there are those that also just straight up buy those really big ships through the plex exchange as well, through CCP. So makes them money. It of course cuts down on the longevity of the game, and it's apparently something that is a big factor at the moment. Next up, we've got the small scale injectors. A slight pullback here in the small scale injectors from more than 170 to less than 170, but sellers 163, buyers 160 million. Again, that very narrow margin is quite clear, but the small scale injectors actually down in price a little bit, maybe on some extra supply from somewhere or something like that. And that's it, except for the daily alpha injector, extremely flat, right around 60 million. Median daily price today so far is a little bit below that. Let's take a look at that. Sellers though 60.2 million, buyers are at 56 million ISK. So this is basically very flat and stable, and that is to be expected because of course you buy this straight from CCP. Next up, let's move on to some minerals at 950. There we go. And as always, we'll start with titanium. Good news here for the HiSec miners. So titanium, after reaching a nice high of more than 5.5 ISK, had to give back a little bit of ground. And I was afraid that this would have lots of momentum. But nope, look at that pullback, back up above 5.5 ISK. That was very good news. We do, of course, want to see the GDAP prices 560, 550. 550, we can, there's 10 million units, we can pretty much disregard that. But let's say 560 for the sellers and 512 for the buyers. Decently large margins, so the buyers do want the prices to go lower. Any big supply could potentially do that, but so far 550, if you look at this chart, is definitely a great price for titanium, so that is very good news for the HiSec miners. It's a different story for pyrite. As you can see here, also try to crawl out of the hole up to 5.2, 5.3, something like that. But with, I would say, the end of big conflict in nullsec, you know, there's always some conflict in nullsec, of course, but when it's not the big groups that are basically converting all their PvE guys to PvP guys to go and fight a big battle, then this is what's happening. Minerals get oversupplied, and the first victim is, generally speaking, pyrite, that is diving straight back to a 1-year low point of like around 4.5 ISK. Sellers coming in at 459, buyers coming in at 456, so this is very close to a 4.5 1-year low. On here, 2 billion units at 475, less than 24 hours ago, is going to continue to put that pressure on pyrite. That is really not good news. A lack of conflict in nullsec and a lack of destruction in conflict is clearly having an impact on the mineral market. It's also probably conversion from PvP guys that would be on deployment to getting back in your Orcal, and as a result they apparently mine way more pyrite than they need in nullsec, and this is the chart that you get because of that. It's a little bit different for Mexalon, which is great news in my opinion. As we can see here, it's trying to hold on to 80 ISK as an average price, which is, well, not bad. 1-year high point, pretty much. 80 ISK for the sellers, 70.26 for the buyers. That is something to keep in mind. The margin between the higher minerals is still quite wide, so there is this pressure from buyers to try and get that price down. Any big supply chunks is actually going to negatively impact the price here, but Mexalon, very good price, close to 1-year high point. So here, with this information, it's pretty obvious once again, if you're mining in HiSec, focus on asteroids that yield you a Mexalon, and your secondary is obviously titanium. That is not doing so bad. I do feel like titanium is probably going to get under pressure a little bit before Mexalon. This is basically the nullsec bottleneck. That's one thing that they're lacking when it comes to their own mining. It's sources of Mexalon. Isogen, that's back on the bad news front. Look at that volume increase and look at that price crash straight through 40 ISK is what we're working on. Let's take a look at the prices. Sellers coming in at 40 ISK, buyers coming in at 37.64. The pressure is on. Just look at the amount of fresh sell orders here. That's more than a full front page of new sell orders in batches of 24, 25 million, 50 million, 30 million. All of that getting sold closer and closer to 40 is closer and closer to that 1-year low again. So Isogen and pyrite are unfortunately the first victims when it comes to some calmer waters in nullsec and thus more mining potential. Next up, we've got Noxium. More bad news here, definitely crashing down. Pretty much, if you look at this chart, it's falling off a cliff after reaching practically 400 ISK, which was a really good price for Noxium. It's now already selling for 354 ISK, and the buyers are coming in at 322. That's pretty bad, and that's definitely a bad chart. But what makes it worse, in my opinion, is that it's not even on a big volume spike. This is just the market saying, keep the supplies going. We're not buying Noxium at anything close to 375 or 400 ISK. It's just not selling at those prices. Really not great news for miners at this point. Next up, we've got the nullsec minerals. Here is Zydrine, went from 800 to 900 ISK, staying below pretty much the entire 1-year chart here, and at the tail end apparently under pressure already as well. 900 ISK, just below that for the sellers, 820 for the buyers. Again, pretty large margin, any big supply chunks is actually going to take more off this price. 820, 800 is a 1-year low point here, so you can definitely try to pick up some buy orders here for some cheap Zydron if you want to stock up on that. Personally, I'd wait for something closer to 800 ISK. I think it's definitely in the books as long as nothing too drastic breaks out in nullsec. So I'd have a little bit more patience on this one personally. Next up we've got Megasite. Very similar chart, of course, went to less than 1000 ISK. To like 920, very low price, then back up to 1200 ISK, not bad, but it's not to last. At least here it's on an increased volume that this price is crashing down. Oof, the throat a little bit. 1080 ISK for the sellers, 928 for the buyers. That is a very wide margin, and yeah, fresh supply here, like 10 million units here, 6.6 million units here is going to put that pressure on. And so here you can see that potentially we can very easily get back to 920, 930 ISK Megasite. It's already at 930 basically for the buyers. If you have a little bit of patience, you can already stock up on some really cheap Megasite. And then finally, for the final mineral, we've got Morphite. That was a lovely spike though. Low point here is at 8200 ISK. High point went up to almost 12,000 ISK. That's definitely a nice trade that you could have made in just 2 months. But here, nullsec war decreasing, war activities decreasing, price crashing back down to 10,000 ISK. So we're still at the in-between point, 10,100 for the sellers, 9,800 for the buyers. But what I would say here at this point is, if you're looking to actively trade in the minerals, Morphite seems to have the better margins, the most volatility, which is normal because it's related to Tech 2 production, which is in a little bit of limbo at the moment with the new refinery and the new moon mining changes. So this is what I would look for, a price for less than 9,000 ISK for Morphite. You could build up some stocks of that at that price and then just wait for a nullsec war or something like that to break out, and then you're good to go. After that we've got some some PI. God damn it, I am a little bit distracted, I'll be honest. I'll give you guys a story at this point because it's gonna keep happening, I think. I started an Eve Talk recording, and then neighbors from behind us came in because their cat got stuck in a tree at the back of our yard, and so they had to break out a big ladder to get it out. So I'm actually a little bit afraid that she just went straight back into the tree and that they're gonna call again. So if that happens, well, then of course I'll need to do a third recording of Eve Talk. But that's the reason I'm a little bit distracted. I'm sort of half expecting the bell to ring again. Still, we are going to do PI at 1750 then. There we go, and let's get started here on the broadcast notes. Price slowly decreasing here continuously. Big volume spike here. If this is more supply, that is bad news for the broadcast note prices. Good news for the people looking to invest. Let's take a look at that. 2.25 million for the sellers, 2 million for the buyers, and supply, yeah, look at that. Almost a full front page of fresh supply here. It is going to continue to keep these prices pretty low. I would say 2 million for the buyers. If you're looking to make those early investments on a new structure, potentially this is a good time to buy some of these. Next up, we've got the construction blocks. That's at 12,000 ISK. This is now starting to show that weird pattern of the median daily prices basically all over the place. I don't really understand what's happening here, but let's take a look at sellers and buyers. 13,100 ISK for the sellers, slight bit above average. 11,800 for the buyers, right around average for construction blocks. So if you want to sell, have the patience to put up a sell order, and if you want to buy, honestly, I think you're a bit too early. Consumer electronics next, actually managing to pull back a little bit, up in price, not bad. Went up to 15,000 ISK here on the chart, showed some signs of some weakness, trying to get back to 12,500, which I would say is the average price. Currently selling for 14,150, definitely above average, but even the buyers, 13,175 ISK, are definitely above average as well. So cool consumer electronics, I would say, if you have the means to bring these to the market or to produce them quickly, is definitely a good idea because we're well above average here. Next up, coolants. Alright, that's been a while. After reaching a low point of 7,420 ISK on a median daily price on the chart here, managed to jump back up above 8,750. So 9,250 ISK for the sellers. Okay, it's still not great, but at least it's up a little bit in price, and 8,750 for the buyers as well. That is not bad, but it's definitely not where we would like to see coolant, right? If I would have to call the usual average before the moon mining changes, I would have put that at like 12,000 ISK. Now we're very lucky if we can actually reach 10,000 ISK on coolants, but up in price a little bit. So keeping in mind what happened a couple of weeks ago on the robotics, first sign that maybe demand is picking up for fuel. Enriched uranium, same thing, increased volumes, but also increased price, and that is actually getting back to 12,500. Yep, 12,232 for the sellers, almost back to a normal average, but 10,900 for the buyers is definitely below average for enriched uranium. So another fuel-related PI material that is actually trying to crawl back from that 1-year low point. Next up, we've got integrity response drones hovering around 2.5 million, sellers at 2.55, 2.6 almost, buyers are at 2.5 million, very narrow margins, so not oversupplied. Personally, I would have some patience if you're looking to purchase these as an investment. If you want to use them for a structure, of course, you're right on the regular price. Mechanical parts next. Fuel material that's continuing to slide down towards 9,000 ISK here, 9,150 for the sellers, 8,900 for the buyers. So it's not across the board just yet, but maybe that means that mechanical parts might be primed for an increase in price as well, and buying them below 9,000 ISK might be a good investment as well. Let's take a look at the nuclear reactors. Unfortunately quite stable, just above 100,000 ISK here, 107 for the sellers, 98,000 for the buyers. Very narrow margin on a specialized PI material that used to have quite decent volatility. So that bad news continues. I wouldn't be actively trading in that at the moment. Robotics, 100,000 ISK and flat, at least it's out of the hole. So 90,000 to 100,000 ISK is that increase in price that is now also showing up in coolants and in the enriched uranium. So mechanical parts, who knows? 100,000 ISK for the sellers. It's an average. It's also the average from before the moon mining, maybe a bit below that, but not by too much. And then 97,000 for the buyers. Narrow margin here once again. The market agrees this is an okay price for robotics. Self-harmonizing power cores, jumping up in price a little bit, quite interesting. Average 2.35 million, which is for the sellers almost 2.4 million. Buyers are at 2.3 million. I would say here, again, okay to buy if you're using them. For the investment, wait for a better opportunity. Superconductors next, 12,000, very flat. Again, that weird pattern, same as the construction blocks, I would say. 12,000 for the sellers, touch below average, 11,400, same thing. If you don't have the patience, you know, try and sell them for 12,000 ISK. It's actually still an okay price. It's not a disaster. Test cultures next, flat at around 9,000 ISK here, 9,250 for the sellers, 8,400 for the buyers. 8,400 for the buyers is starting to be interesting, I think. If we look at this entire chart, can we get a price similar to that? Up, here it is, 8,400 here. I would say that that's practically okay to start investing in test cultures for the structure spike that would happen on the next deployment. And then we've got wetware mainframes jumping up in price a little bit as well. That's quite interesting on slightly increased volumes. Is something leaking again? Is there someone that knows more than the rest about an upcoming structure sooner than expected? Who knows? 2.6 million for the sellers, 2.5 million for the buyers. CSM minutes did just drop, so maybe there's something of interest there. I'll probably need to spend a little bit of time in that. Next up, the Tech 1 chips at 24.5. There we go. And let's get started here with the Apocalypse, unfortunately continuing its flat price range of around 130 million ISK, which is basically still trying to absorb the arms race event. 133 million for the sellers, 121 for the buyers. There's not much to say except that this is super cheap for an Apocalypse. The Caracal, which went up in price all of a sudden to 10 billion ISK, is trying to go back down, I think. Yep, first sellers coming in at less than 10 million ISK, 106 units here, 90 units here, 9.2 million for the buyers. The pressure is on again. And unfortunately, I think it's gonna win out, because we've also seen that the minerals have stopped their ascent and some of them are crashing down. This means that the margins are increasing for these producers, which also means that fresh supply is going to start to compete for the lower prices just to get sold. So it's unfortunate. This was very nice, a bit of a comeback on nullsec activity, on higher mineral prices, but that's all being smothered now by a quieter nullsec. The catalysts still doing strongly, 1.5 million for the sellers, 1.3 million for the buyers. I think you're getting a decent profit on this, even at GTAP prices, so I'd say not bad for some reason. The Drake also back at 45 million, and then 45 million fresh supply, not too much, so yeah, 45.6 million for the sellers, 41.6 for the buyers. Okay price, probably. My expectation is that if in the upcoming weeks Tritanium and Mexilon also start to fall down, then we'll start to see the pressure on these ships as well. Ferox actually spiked up quite significantly, or is this like a weird data point? Possibly. 53 million for the sellers, 47 million for the buyers. Is a little bit above average, but I basically think here we can put that in the same spot as the Drake, that this is like an anomaly. Next up we've got the Hurricane, same thing, right, up a little bit in price, nullsec war, higher minerals, but now it is stalling, selling at 48 million, buyers are at 42.5 million. Megatron, okay, doing nicely, finally a battleship that is really managing to absorb the arms race dip here, and is back up to 154 million for the sellers, even 140 for the buyers. Well, it's not a great price, especially historically speaking, but considering for 2018 it's the best price yet, so hooray for that. You can actually, I think, come close to building a Megatron and selling it at cost, I think. The Oracle up in price and flat as well, that is that same pattern here, 80 million. Lack of supply is quite a visible thing here in the Oracle, 72 million for the buyers here. The Raven, same thing as the Megatron, a nice comeback here up to 160 million even, 170 for the sellers, 154 for the buyers. Might even be some ISK in that for producers of Ravens at this point. Then we've got the Retriever trying to hold on at 22.5 million, 23.5 for the sellers. Again, not that much supply here. Basically, yep, Tech 1 production is very difficult. You're very easily smothered by other supply. Tempest also crawling back here, back to 155 million for the sellers, 140 for the buyers. Good to see at least some of these battleships making a comeback after the arms race dip. The Thrasher slowly going down in price. The Catalyst still staying the winner of the destroyers. It's basically a lack of demand here. 1 million, couple of guys, and then nobody needs Thrashers apparently. 1.1 million for the sellers. Then we've got the Tornado. Finally, a nice increase in price. It's not on increased volume, so this is just the market, I think, doing its thing. I don't think that there's like a ganking party that's bought out the Tornado market. 69.5 million for the sellers, 59 million for the buyers, up in price back to its normal average here. Unfortunately, as I've said, it's probably gonna stall right away. Then we've got the Tristan doing some weird stuff above 500,000 ISK. It's still just a frigate, so 565 for the sellers, 430 for the buyers. Actually, I think you're getting a little bit of ISK on the production there as well. Venture doing okay, I would say, at 235,000 ISK. Maybe a bit of ISK in that, not much. And then the Vexor, which went up quite ambitiously up to 11 million apparently on a day, is crashing back down, selling now for 10 million ISK. Buyers are at 9.3 million ISK. So here the Tech 1 market knew a bit of a recovery, and this has definitely helped some of the battleships to absorb the arms race dip here. but unfortunately the nullsec Imperium deployment, I would say that it's not because the Imperium mines and brings to Jita, but when the Imperium deploys, everyone else stops their PvE and comes in for the fights as well on all sides. And that is basically what gave us a little bit of an increased price for minerals, and maybe a little bit of extra demand as well, some extra destruction, which gave the Tech 1 market a bit of a breather. But unfortunately, if the minerals are an indication, it's gonna stop by next week already, in my expectation. Next up, we've got the Tech 2 market at, let's make it 30 minutes. There we go. And here, so I got a comment last week which basically explained that with the current advanced moon mineral prices, the 30 million mark, 27 million mark is at cost, and so expect that to be your bottom. So I could agree with that. I still think that potentially the price itself for advanced moon materials can still go down as well, especially if 0.5 and wormhole space also start producing some of those goods. So I think we could still go lower, but on the market price front, of course, that is something to keep in mind, that we are actually operating close to cost. But that makes sense, of course, because you could easily trade that. If you want to produce more of a certain ship, then you want to buy that from the market, the materials from the market. We're going to work at cost there. But the way I'm looking at it is that I think the potential for more supply and thus for lower prices exists at the very base of moon mining itself. That's my expectation. So the Ares is dipping below 30 million, sellers coming in at 29 million. Still a decent amount, I would say, here if you look at everything below 29 million. Buyers at 28 million though. They're not going much lower at this point. So we'll see where we take it from here. That could be very interesting. Cerberus also showing that pattern, going back towards 230 million ISK, so 240 for the sellers, 225 for the buyers here. Yeah, the question is, what will we do next? Are we going to be able to make a lower band, or will we bounce back from the previous low points? Claw, same thing, basically landing at 30 million unfortunately, 31 for the sellers, 26 for the buyers though, slightly larger margin, not that much supply to bring the price back down though. Then we've got the Crow, actually at a high point, 32.5 on the charts, 32.4 for the sellers, 30 million for the buyers. This one is saying nope. Then we've got the Crusader next, very flat, but below 30 million, so this one is hesitating. 30 million for the sellers, 25.6 million for the buyers, decently large margin compared to the others. So again, I think that this could get swept away by whatever happens to the other ones. If all of a sudden Ares Claw make a comeback, then this one might go back above 30 million, but if the next leg down is possible, then this one could show that as well. Heretic is a little bit different because it's basically not sure, an interdictor. Maybe there's so much demand for that and lack of supply that it's still playing with 1 year highs. 90 million for the sellers, crazy high price for the Heretic. Definitely something that if you can produce these, I think you're making really good ISK on that. The Hound next, look at that crash, pretty nice, staying below 30 million. 29 for the sellers, 26 for the buyers. I'd say potentially that next leg down is possible. Ishtar also going back down and actually breaking the chart here since the introduction of moon materials on the downside. 250 million for the sellers, a little bit above that. 232 for the buyers, averages coming in below 250. I'd say this is an important one because it's of course a very popular cruiser. I think that there are decent volumes, there are decent availabilities, but also good demand. And this could be a strong indicator in my opinion. Manticore next, also going back towards 30 million. Manticore has always been a bit more expensive, 32 for the sellers. Buyers trying to bring that down to 29 million. Very nice to see. So again, a bit of a downturn. It can be the same pattern, of course. Increased price on the nullsec activity, decreased price on the lower nullsec activity. I'm still hoping that at the back end, that there is still more potential from moon mining. 29.5 for the sellers, 22 for the buyers. Look at that, buyers for Nemesis, 22 million. That's what I like to see when I look at the chart before moon mining was introduced. 20 million was great. 22 million sounds like a good price to invest in some Nemesis stealth bombers, to be honest. Pontifex slowly going back down to 75 million, but still 82 million for the sellers. So that is still frigates first, destroyers next, cruisers after that. Maybe even switch it out, cruisers, because they're generally more popular, used for lots of PvE stuff as well, before the command destroyers, for instance. Purifier, same thing, coming in below 30 million, 27.8 for the buyers though, narrow margin here, could go either way. Raptor next, actually jumping up a little bit, 37 million for the sellers, 31 million for the buyers. So I would say that one could still go either way as well. The Saber still, of course, 80 million, almost 79 million for the sellers. Very expensive, it is an interdictor. Then we've got the Stiletto, playing with 30 million here. I like this, I like this. 30 million for the sellers, 28 million for the buyers. Again, could go either way. So the potential, in my opinion, is still there. Stork, 90 million, of course, command destroyer, 95 million for the sellers. I think you're making money on that. If someone can confirm or deny that, I'd love to have a comment on it, but I think that a Stork for 95 million is way above cost, is a very nice margin. And now we've got the Taranis that is just crawling back to 30 million. ISK buyers at 27 million, sellers at 31 million. Another week here where we've got signals going both sides. The destroyer staying so high is not a good sign, but I would say that the Ishtar breaking below the average here on the chart since the deployment of Moon Mining is a good sign. And then we get the Nemesis buying at 22 million is, I would call that an opportunity. If you can pick some of those up at 22.1 million or something like that, if an Nostic war happens, you're definitely making some ISK on that one. Interesting, I would say. We'll still need to see how exactly all of this evolves. Let's move on to the Tech 3 market at 36.15. There we go. And as always, we'll start with the destroyers. Here is the Confessor down in price. Absolutely, 44 million for the sellers, 42.5 million for the buyers. So I think last week I said this looks primed to maybe do another spike up. But if, of course, Nostic activity decreases, that it doesn't materialize, this could have been a very bad call from me. So here you can basically see the decrease in volatility and the settling at above 40 million ISK here for the Confessors. Let's see what the Hecate is doing. Same thing, but at 50 million ISK, so selling for 50 million. Look at the supply here though, that decent numbers right there. 46 million for the buyers on the Confessor side. Not that much, but if you look at everything below 50 million, then it does become a decent amount of Confessors right here. Then we've got the Jackdaw. After a bit of an increase in price as well, I think it's now going to be under pressure. So selling for 54.5 million, but look at that, 145, 102. That's going to definitely put some pressure on that price to get back in line with the rest of them. 45 to 50 million is, I would say, the aimed trade range. And then we've got the Svepul, that's right at 50 million as well. And look at that, 135, 285. Gonna put the pressure in, anything new comes in needs to get below that. And so these are, I would say, set for stability, because oversupply is a bit of a threat in the Tech 3 market that I'm seeing constantly peak up above the horizon. Hey, don't do anything too crazy with your price. Here's a couple hundred ships again, here's a couple hundred ships again. And that just keeps putting that pressure back on here. Let's see if it's the same story with the cruisers. Legion obviously continually under pressure at 143 million, 134 for the buyers, so that looks okay. On the supply front though, 120 here at 145 is exactly what I'm talking about. And if this lasts too long, then, you know, who knows, a next batch might come in. The Loki is still doing really strongly at 200 million. That's pretty crazy, but look at this, 180, 120, 120. So that's that head peeking out there with the oversupply on the front head there. Look out, don't do anything too crazy there. We've got lots of ships available. But that's a great price, of course, for the Loki, I would say. Then we got the Proteus very flat here at 140 million with again 280, 180 here. Not really good news for this seller because someone came in with 180. So this is definitely like, you know, Proteus is not going anywhere. And then we've got the Tengu finally, that's up in price a little bit, up to 150 million. And that is basically a relisting, showing that there's like 300 of them ready to go at 150 million. seizing any potential for really a breakthrough unless someone feels like buying a couple hundred Tengus for some reason. So yeah, the Tech 3 market is definitely showing signs of more stability. Bad call from me on the Confessor last week because, well, Nullsec basically dried up in its destruction a little bit. And as a result here, I am seeing that oversupply specter loom over the Tech 3 market, which is just gonna bring more stability, and eventually there's apparently some big players that come in with stuff like this that sell like 150, 120 of them at a very specific price. Eventually, if it keeps up, then they're going to be forced to bring him down again, and that's when you get these crazy patterns like right here before the changes to Tech 3 ships must be set here, with 130 million across the board. And then you had the Tengu doing some really crazy stuff here, going as low as 110 million and staying there for like 2 months straight. That was just because we had like 400-500 Tengus at that price. That is what I'm most afraid of when it comes to the Tech 3 market, and the reason why I'm staying away from actively investing a lot in these ships at the moment. And then for the extra products, I said I was gonna do it. It's gonna be ice and ice products at 4030. And there we go. So let's see, I think that's manufacturing, ice products, and is the ice itself anywhere? Is it under minerals? No. Alright, then we'll do ice. I am curious basically what's happening. Oops, ice is like this. What the hell? Manufacturing? There we go. So we get, yeah, very, very interesting in my opinion here. Blue ice at a 1-year high point and selling for 424,000 ISK here. At a high point though. Okay, compressed blue ice showing the same thing. Look at that. 1-year high point up to 400,000 ISK. Again, 450 for the sellers. Alright, let's see what the thick blue ice, same thing of course. Where are the other ones? Thick blue ice, that's weird. Okay. So blue ice is at a high point. Where are the other ones? What the hell am I doing wrong? There's gotta be more ice out there. What would it be? Gas cloud materials, PI, raw materials? Yeah, ice ores. There we go. That's what we need. Oh, it's more than I expected. Okay, so we got blue ice at a 1-year high. Clear icicle around average, but that's obviously not what I was actually looking for. Here is the compressed blue ice. Let's see. For dark glitter, that's also, I don't think, are all of these, yeah, dark glitter, if that's also an ice product. Did they change the icons or something? It used to always look like blue ice, so I'm not sure what I'm doing here, to be honest. But if all of these are products, then it's still a mixed picture. Here is white glaze on the lower end of its average. Thick blue ice, for some reason super flat. Smooth glacial mass. What does that produce? Yep. So those are the new ice icons. Hadn't even come across those, sorry about that. Basically very flat here at the current price range. Pristine white glaze also. Okay. So I'm just quickly gonna go over these to get a feel, but I feel like most of them are very flat except for a couple of them which probably don't impact, and we get 1 more hour to finish, so that should work. Dark glitter a bit below average. Let's take a look at all the compressed ones. That might give us an actual idea. So let's go over these. Around average for compressed white glaze. The compressed thick blue is at a 1-year high point, but then the smooth glacial mass as well. Compressed pristine white glaze also at a high point right here. Crystallose though is pretty low, but also breaking out here. Is this going for 750? Yeah, 720. Okay, also increasing in price. Glare crust, compressed, increasing in price as well, up to 900,000 ISK almost, which is right here on the chart. Interesting. Compressed glacial mass, high point. Compressed gelidus is not at a high point. Let's see what the sellers are at. Yeah, 368. That's one exception here. This one coming off of a high point, but definitely above average. Compressed dark glitter is at a low point, not breaking out just yet. Pretty good supply. compressed clear icicle at a high point, and then the compressed blue ice definitely at a high point as well. So okay, interesting. I thought it would be like 4 or 5 ice types, one for every race, and then 4 compressed, but it's a bit more complex than that. My general feeling here though is that these ice prices themselves are very high, especially the compressed blue ice. The compressed ice product, as you can see here, are very expensive at the moment. Interesting. I think that is maybe why, despite the really low coolant prices, you don't have fuel prices that have crashed down in a similar fashion. So let's also take a look at the moon materials then, ice products. Heavy water though, not that high. I would say for 100 disk is below its average if you look at the chart, or right around the average. So nothing too drastic here. Helium isotopes though, definitely at a 1-year high point at 1000 disk. Basically, god damn it, my mouse is sticking now. This is not the easiest EVE talk that I've made, but helium isotopes 1-year high point, and that is probably same with hydrogen isotopes, definitely pretty expensive as well. Probably offsetting in part the PI decrease in price. Here is liquid ozone, that's actually pretty much on the average. Nitrogen isotopes, that's actually doing okay. Oxygen isotopes though, 1-year high point, look at that, pretty high. And then strontium is still not doing well at all, but that's also not needed. So I'll quickly check that. If I go here for the fuels, for instance, and then in industry, yeah, it's all this stuff. Heavy water, liquid ozone, few market details, that one's okay. Liquid ozone, that one's okay as well. What the hell? Show info, isotopes. Yeah, the isotopes are at a high point and are basically offsetting the decrease in price from PI materials, because I've seen that pattern now in the fuel prices. We'll quickly go over these as well. Look at that, helium isotopes definitely breaking out of that rut, getting above 20k. Hydrogen fuel blocks, look at that, same thing, you know, below 20k, and now all of a sudden above that. Nitrogen, same thing, you could have seen that on the ticker reaching 20k, and it's been a long time since it did that. And then oxygen isotopes, same thing, from below to above 20,000 ISK. So there is this slight increase in price in fuel, and I was surprised that PI was basically not really showing that same slow increase in price, although robotics did do that. The rest of them were flat for too long, so look out here. Ice products, lots of these isotopes are at a high year point. Compressed ice is definitely at a higher point almost across the board. Some PI is going up as well. To me, this looks primed to increase the price of fuel blocks even more than they are at the moment, which makes your facilities a bit more expensive, because you do have to fuel them, of course. And with potentially lots of moons in 0.5 in wormhole space starting to grab fuel as well, with potentially after the patch a bit more demand coming in as well, because people want the armor timer for some of their structures. All of that looks set to me like fuels might be in for a good time if you have bought them at the price of less than 20,000 ISK, which I didn't, because I put everything straight into the structures, of course. Anyways, that's it for this EVE talk then, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.